Hey there, Gemini. How you doing? So this is the full moon forecast, taking you from the full moon in Libra right the way through to the new moon in Taurus, coming up on the 27th of April. So it's a 2-week forecast just for you. Now, I don't know what kind of Gemini you are. Are you actually like a Gemini sun sign, or am I talking to a Gemini ascendant person or rising sign? That's what you might call it. Do you know what? This forecast will work for you either way. So knock yourself out. So what I'm doing with this forecast is giving you a heads up about the planetary weather for the next 2 weeks ahead so that you can plan your time as effectively as you want to. I think astrology is really helpful because it gives you a heads up as to what might be coming so that you can make alternative arrangements or actually plan in the right kind of activity for the right kind of day. If you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa Tanner Munson, and I call this Feel Good Astrology because my whole purpose behind this is to help you feel better in life, to help you feel more prepared, like you've got more opportunities, more possibilities. If you are coming back, then thanks for coming back. I really appreciate you. Anyway, let's get going. Let's have a sense of what's going on in this 2 weeks ahead. So the first thing I really want to share with you is that we're going through the waning moon forecast. So, right now at the time of the full moon in Libra, the full moon is absolutely at its biggest. It's fully illuminated. All of our unconscious patterns, our conscious patterns, pretty much every pattern is kind of swirling around us and we can see it. It's illuminated. The moon really shows us what's going on emotionally for us. So if something is out of balance, we'll be feeling overwhelmed, overworked. There's like too much going on, too many opportunities, too much coming in, too many senses. It's an overload of sorts. Now, it can be a really deeply spiritual time. So for instance, if you're an intuitive and you manage your energies really well, this could be a really great time to tune into the greatest potential that you could access. But most of us aren't really that good. I'm definitely not either. So, most of us do find we get a little bit ratty, a little bit tense, a little bit overwhelmed during these times. And what happens next is really a natural process. So the moon goes from being really big and then it appears to shrink before our very eyes, leading us to the new moon. And of course, it's not shrinking. It's just going dark. It's the phase of the moon and it appears to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And so for this first week, up until the third quarter, which is the midpoint, the available light is going down every day. And that is, I think, a bit like the level of conscious awareness that we have about what we're thinning from our lives, tidying up from our lives, really getting conscious about. This is a time of letting go and making a good decision. This was overwhelming. This really isn't me. This isn't the result that I want my energy to bring me to. I'm going to let it go. So it's like a conscious letting go. And it's a tidying up. It's neatening everything. It's a bit like a spring clean. And then as we get to the third quarter, we start to go into the darker nights. And this is when we're going into the magic and mystery of life. So things aren't so clear, things aren't so apparent, and we have to really go deep inside ourselves and tune in to what's going on. This is a time when our intuition naturally seems to awaken. It's also a time when we tend to slow down. So we slow right down and we get inside into our feelings, and we have to trust in the process that's going on. And then as we come up towards the new moon, the last point of this cosmic 2-week cycle, we're really cleaning the slate so that we can start the next moon cycle with a lovely clean space ahead of us, so we can choose and make some really good decisions as to what energies we want to fill up our next month with. So that's how I see it going. But what I like to do is actually put this onto a diary and get a sense of how this looks. Most of us work on diaries. I have a sort of internal diary in my head. And, as I look at this, I can clearly see that these two moons, the new moon and the full moon, are occurring 2 weeks apart on the Sunday. And the third quarter, the halfway point, is just on the Monday. Now, In this first week, you can see that there's a lot more going on. Now, I haven't mentioned all of the moon's aspects because the moon moves really fast, but all the major aspects between all the other planets I've listed. And these are the ones that really steal the show. These are the things I think are creating an energetic shift. And this first week is absolutely of shifts. Now, there's a few reasons for that. The first one, I think, is that since the end of November last year, we have been going into a time of real personal retrogrades. So, we've got the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and we've got Jupiter and Saturn, which are like bridging planets. And then we've got our inner consciousness planets. We've got the sun and the moon, which don't go retrograde, but we've got Mercury to do with our thoughts and our communication, our ability to move things around. It's like a delivery service. So we've got Mercury, which goes retrograde. We've got Venus that goes retrograde every 8 months. And Venus goes retrograde for about 40 days, roughly. And she is showing us how we can connect with our emotions, how we can connect with our senses, how we relate to people and products and concepts. She's a relator. She shows us our value of things. And so when she goes retrograde, that puts us in a bit of a spin. We've also got Mars, which is, the planet of our activity, our vitality, our ability to defend ourselves, our ability to take action. And of course, since November, we've had Mercury go retrograde twice, Mars retrograde from the 6th of November until the 23rd of February. And then we've had Venus going retrograde from the 2nd of March, and she goes direct on the day of this full moon in Libra. Now, what fascinates me is we've had one or two of these planets retrograde throughout this whole period from the end of November until the 13th of April, with the exception of 6 little days. I think it's 6 days. The 23rd, 24th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 1st. Yeah, 6 days between the 23rd of February and the 2nd of March. So that's a long time to have these very deep personal retrogrades going on. Now, during that time, we start reviewing our progress, and we often don't feel like we're moving forwards in life. So if you have been feeling like you've been held back, I know I have. If you feel like you've been held back since the end of November, there's a good reason for that. We've had all these retrogrades. So the first real, I think, signal that things are starting to move forwards is on the 13th of April, this full moon in Libra. Venus is going direct. Everything is direct, out of those 3 planets. The next significant thing is both Mercury and Mars, who were both retrograde in their water signs. So Mercury was in the sign of Pisces. Mars seemed like forever was going retrograde in the sign of Cancer. They are both moving forwards into fire signs in this first week of this 2-week forecast. So on the 16th of April, Mercury goes into Aries, a really direct fire sign. So our communications are likely to get a lot more succinct, direct, straightforward. We shoot from the hip, which is great. There's no messing. Things are much clearer. I think that's going to be really great. That's going to be a real sort of leap forwards. It's going to help us all move forwards. And then on the 18th, Mars is going to go into fiery Leo, which is proud, expressive, wants to be central. Mars going into Leo is playful. So there's this feeling of playful activity. So both of these are working beautifully together. The very next day on the 19th, the sun is moving into Taurus. So there's another advancement. So it really does feel like from the 13th of April, Venus goes direct, then Mercury, Mars, and the sun are all changing signs. I really, really love that. Really love that a lot. In between that, we've got Mercury making a conjunction with Neptune and Mars making a trine with Neptune. Now, Neptune has just changed signs at the end of March. And these are the first conjunctions in the sign of Aries. So Mercury conjunct Neptune, both in Aries, Mars in a trine to Neptune. This is the first Mars and Neptune aspect since Neptune changed signs. So this is us leaping forwards and being able to take the spiritual qualities, the idealistic qualities, the peaceful qualities, the higher love qualities, the beyond the veil qualities, the psychic realm qualities of Neptune. And be able to articulate our creativity, articulate what's going on at a soul level and take action on it. I really, really love this. Mercury and Mars are going to work beautifully together with Neptune. Something else that grabs my eye, or catches my eye, grabbing sounds a bit violent, doesn't it? We've got Saturn and Venus both making a conjunction with the North Node. Now, in fact, in this whole 2-week period, Saturn, Venus, and the North Node are all working together. They're in a really tight space, in a really tight conjunction. And so when you combine the three of those energies together, Saturn is about responsibility, taking charge, being the grown-up, accounting for things, measuring things, making sure things work, things are practical. Venus is a lover, not a fighter. Venus wants to create goodwill and peace. She's also an abundance thinker. She's really wanting to smooth things over. The two of them together become classy, peaceful, helpful, soothing. They're like a balm. And with the North Node, I really think we can move forwards towards our dreams, to feel like we're working towards what we want to bring into our worlds with a sense of purpose and a sense of karma. So this first week is really moving us forwards. And then the second week, you'll notice it's a little less busy. And we've got some repeats. So we've got the Sun in a square to Mars and the Sun in another square, this time to Pluto. And then we've got Pluto and Mars in an opposition. And this is really bringing up an ongoing theme that we've had since the end of October. So ordinarily, every couple of years, Mars and Pluto go into an opposition, and they create a sense of threat for our survival, a bit of an inner tussle about where we are going to put our action and our activities and our defensive mechanisms. Normally, these oppositions don't last very long. They pass out quite quickly. However, when these oppositions started and went into their full first opposition on November the 3rd, soon after Mars went retrograde, and then it made another opposition with Pluto. Pluto was also retrograde, so they were dancing around. They were doing a lot of movement together. And then that was on the 3rd of January, and now they're coming to their last opposition together on the 27th of April. So this is quite a process for this opposition. Now, for people, like if you've got your moon or an angle in the sign of Scorpio, you'll most likely have really felt this, because both Mars and Pluto are co-rulers of Scorpio. So it's brought up quite a few difficulties for Scorpio. I've got Scorpio rising. I have to say it's really, I felt very pulled apart and not known how to take action. It's been quite a frustrating time. But what is really significant with this is the interplay with the sun and the moon. And I'm going to show you what this looks like in a second with the charts. What I want to do first is just say thank you to everybody who supports my channel in the various ways that you do. Some people buy me a coffee. There are links below. Some people are members of my new membership, my Feel Good Astrology membership, my community. However you've supported me historically or right now, I really, really thank you. You really make my life much smoother. And you have a real impact on my channel. So thank you so very much. I really appreciate you. Anyway, let's have a look at these three charts. So I've drawn up three charts, Gemini. The first one is for the full moon in Libra. The second one is for that third quarter phase of the moon. That's when the moon gets round to Pluto. And then the last one is when we've got the new moon in Taurus. If I just wind back. So at the time of the full moon, the moon is here, and you'll see the sun is here. They're in that big cross. They are in opposition. And you'll see Pluto and Mars are working together. And this is making what's known as a grand square. Now, it's a bit of a generous grand square because it's a little bit too wide, I think, between the Sun and Chiron and Pluto. But I've put it in here to sort of illustrate the energies as they progress over the next 2 weeks. So if you watch the moon, and all the planets should be shifting ever so slightly, some more than others. It's really the moon you're going to see moving. So this is, the moon has moved here. This is halfway between the full moon and the new moon position. And you'll see Pluto and Mars are in opposition. They're both still in a square aspect to the sun. And the moon is involved as well, because the moon is in a square to the sun. The moon is in a conjunction to Pluto and in opposition to Mars. And then when we go to the new moon, you've got the sun and the moon in between Pluto and Mars. So this Pluto-Mars opposition is really quite fundamental. And At each step of the way, the moon and the sun are also working with these two characters. So you've got the male and the female, the light and the dark, the hot and the cold, the thrusting and yielding energy of the sun and the moon, the conscious, the unconscious. And then you've got these two very strong male archetypes of Mars that is yangy, defensive, wants to take action and really wants to be sovereign. And then you've got megalomaniac Pluto, god of the underworld, who wants extreme control, the complete control. And he also manages fears. So often where Pluto goes in our chart, it's showing what we're afraid of and what we're trying to control so we don't have to feel afraid. And so here's my question to you, Gemini. Currently, and Pluto's going to be in this area for quite some time. He's going to be in this very outward, foreign, political, religious, spiritual realm of adventure and higher thought and higher learning, higher context. Pluto is in this place where we normally go to find freedom and independence, and where we learn and we become a teacher, and it really shows us a different context in life. Where Mars is working at the moment is really through the third house, which is showing us what's local, what's understood, our native understanding, our usual narrative. It's really showing us what we really know to be true. And so you've got everything that's familiar and everything that's unfamiliar. And right now, the familiar is really known, and Mars is really wanting to experience it in the physical body and to take action. And yet, Pluto here, I think, is creating some fear, or is showing that there's a fear of what's going on in the outer world, that somehow what the outer world represents, maybe culturally, maybe politically, maybe spiritually, maybe in terms of intellectually, you might be afraid of looking underneath the rug or behind the curtain. It's almost like there's a boogeyman out there. And so Pluto coming into this part of your chart is showing how the lengths that you will go to control your environment. And of course, you can't actually control anything. None of us can. All we can control is what's going on inside. But you definitely can't control everything that is outside of your scope of reference. And so Pluto here is really showing the desire to have some sense of control, some sense of power against energies that you can't control. You know, energies that might be religiously motivated, spiritually motivated, politically motivated, motivated by money, motivated by power, motivated by science or higher learning or legal things. To me, it shows maybe an intellectual fear, a fear of what might happen, like the overpowering, where your local message, the thing that seems familiar to you, you know, it almost feels like something outside is coming to gobble you up. And so this is something that's playing out a lot. And Pluto's going to be here for 19 and a half years. And so, you know, Mars is going to come into this opposition every 2 years or so. The next time will be around October 2026. So you got some time before it comes back. But it's worth studying what you feel around this time, because this theme is likely to repeat and repeat and repeat again. And so I wonder what's coming up for you. What about the outside world or other countries or far, far away are making you feel insecure, making you feel scared, making you feel like you don't have any power or control? And what can you do about it? Because this is the thing. Mars really wants to take control somehow. Mars really wants to help you feel in control in your own life in a realizable way. And so right now in their like when they're pulled apart like this, it creates a frustration, and it almost feels like you can't really choose. But after this 27th of April, Mars is going to zoom off in this direction, and the energy is going to kind of ease off quite a bit, and you'll get the chance to make adjustments and to change your focus. Now, what I like about Mars's position is Mars is working really beautifully with Saturn, the North Node, and Venus and Neptune. So Mars is able to process your ideas to connect and to measure and to innovate and to be creative based on your ideologies and things. So it feels like your Mars is very responsive. There's lots of actions that you would like to take place, that you'd like to get involved in. And it just feels like you're being held back a little bit. Now, leading up to the new moon, there's something else going on. And, this new moon is launching, like relaunching the sense of your intuition, your inner self, your unconscious mind, all of those things that are hidden. So it's interesting. There's a couple of things going on, like Pluto up here represents a fear of the unknown. And then the sun and the moon here are showing that there's a focus on what is hidden. So I really do think coming up to the 27th, anything that you can do to help write a list or explore what you've been hiding from yourself, what you've been afraid to face, anything that you can articulate to at least hear yourself say, I don't want to know about this, or I'm afraid to learn about this. And maybe why, like, for instance, you might have made that mean, if I get afraid, it's because I'm not capable, or if I get afraid, it's because I'm not smart enough, or if I get afraid, it's because I don't have any power. So you might not want to look, not because you're scared, but because of what you've made it mean. So whatever you can do in this 2-week period where you're thinning off all these things that are no longer needed for you in this waning phase, but anywhere where you can journal and make sense of your thoughts and feelings, I think will be really, really beneficial. Now, there are going to be knock-on effects in terms of your love relationships, and also how you manage your money. Like, for instance, Mars is coming out of Cancer, but Jupiter's about to go in. This is a part of your money. And for instance, right now you've got Saturn and Venus and the North Node in this part of your chart, which is all about your career. And they're going to be moving out in May. But ultimately, what I really see is holding you back from better relationships and more money is the fear, the fears as listed here between Pluto and Mars. So go deep, go as deep as you can, and explore what you've made your fears mean. And then take it from there. Take it like one step at a time. Really listen to yourself. Give yourself the time to explore things. Now, if you are looking for greater a greater heads up in terms of your loving relationships, and also how you might manage your career, your sort of daily work, and your finances, then you might want to take this a little bit deeper. So this is the forecast that I do for everybody, but I also do extra forecasts for people every couple of weeks. So every new moon and every full moon, I also do relationship and connection forecast for that new moon for every sign. And for that full moon when it comes along, and the same with career and ambition forecasts. So if you're interested in joining membership, if you go to www.school.com/feelgoodastrology for $22 a month, and you get 1 week's free trial, what you can end up with is 4 little mini readings. I say little, they're at least 10 minutes, usually around 15 minutes. So you're getting between 40 minutes and an hour's worth of extra reading every month. And you don't just get it for your sign. So not just for Gemini. For instance, you might have Gemini sun, but you might have your ascendant or rising sign in the sign of Leo. You could check out the reading for Leo too. You could check out the readings for your friends and family, for your partner. If you're also really mad about astrology and really like to learn more about astrology, I also do a community hangout each month. So it's a great place. Like, if you've got questions after a forecast, I collect them in, and then I sit down and we all hang out and we talk things through. If you're considering a consultation or doing some formal learning with me or coming to a webinar, then I've also got discounts. So that's how my membership's working. And if that sounds like it's of interest to you, then all you have to do is go to www.school.com. Again, it's skool.com/feelgoodastrology, and we can take it from there. It also helps to support my channel. So that is always good too. So anyway, I hope that is helpful for you in understanding what's going on over the next 2 weeks, Gemini. It really is the end of the old, like kissing goodbye to the end of 2024 with that Mars-Pluto opposition and also the sort of relentless retrogrades of the personal planets. But boy, oh boy, are you going on to new things. So anyway, I'll speak to you soon. Take care and hopefully catch you in another forecast real soon. Bye for now.